This is Ethan Morton from Purdue Men's Basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back here to Boilers in the Stands. I am your host, Greg Braggs Jr., and alongside me, as always, is my guy, Joe Jackson. Craig Bowers will be joining us here in just a few moments. Joe and Craig are at Mackey Arena. It may not look like it with Joe. What's up with your background? All of a sudden, you went dark? You're muted here. Let's unmute you here.
There we go. Yeah, they shut off all the lights just now, and it is dark in here. So it is just, there's still some workers on the outside, but inside the actual court, it is just me, and the only lights are from the scoreboard and stuff. So
this is hilarious. Well, typically they used to leave the lights on a little longer than 20 minutes after the game, but maybe they're changing protocol here this year. I guess we'll find out. But Joe's in the dark. Boilers after dark here tonight. Yeah. So we'll see what happens, but it's the final game, final kind of tune-up game, exhibition game. They took on an NAIA school here in Grace. They were playing with their food a little bit early on. I think it got down to 21-16. You're like, what are we doing? And then Purdue kicked it into high gear and won obviously convincingly, as they should, but maybe not convincing enough when you're playing an NAIA school. But we'll maybe I'll hold off on being too picky as far as what the final score is, because as we all know, in exhibition games, you're tinkering with a lot of different things and lineups and the way you're going to try to play. We even saw Zach Edey get a 3-point shot up. Everybody was really, fired up for that. I know Zach was joking about it after the game that they had a play drew up for him. When we talked to Matt Painter a week or so ago, we asked him what the number would be for 3-point shot attempts on the season, and I think he said 12. So I think they're willing to let it fly a few times, but gonna cover a lot of things here tonight. Just as far as rotations we saw and some of the things that we may or may not expect. Certainly excited to see what Lance Jones does once the lights come on. I think he's going to be a perfect fit for the Purdue Boilermakers. So Joe, why don't you take it away and give us your instant reactions here?
Yeah, first, before I might actually have to leave at any second, so we'll see what happens there. But I think the first thing that stood out to me is just Smith's aggressiveness again. This is both exhibition games. Like, you saw him hunting for his shot. A lot out of, I don't think he even shot one jumper off a catch and shoot. If he did, it's slipping my mind right now. Lots of pull-ups. He went, I got to find the lighting to get the stat sheet. 3 of 4 from 3. All of those were pull-ups. Like, just being able to create a shot out of pick and roll is going to be big for him this year. In my thread on Twitter, when I did the Purdue Arkansas exhibition game, there was a pass that he did in the second half. It was off a pick and roll. He snakes and he gets the big to jump up really high on him because he was already taking 5, 6, 7 pull-ups. And so that's just that aggressiveness early. I like it because now it's going to set the table for the rest of the game and potentially open up some passing lanes. And that's what that did in the Arkansas game. Not as much of a chance here, just, only played 17 minutes or something like that. But that's the first thing that stood out. Heidi was great. All this is obviously with, grain of salt because exhibition game, but Heidi looked really, really good. He's probably the top wing off the bench, I would say right now. Wouldn't be shocked if he's like the true 6th man at some point this season. But those are probably the first 2 things. Lance Jones, obviously, he knocked down some threes. I think that's what it's going to be, is you're going to get some games where he knocks down a lot, some games that he's, maybe 1 for 5, 1 for 6. And that's just kind of going to be the Lance Jones experience, I think. So those are probably my 3 takeaways. And yeah, it was a good game overall. Like you said, closer a bit, and then Purdue kind of breaks it open from there.
Yeah, Camden Heide definitely is intriguing. He got in it like after the first time out and immediately knocked down a 3. So I guess the question is do you think there's an opportunity for him to break through into the starting lineup?
That was Heide, you said?
Yeah.
I mean, potentially especially if it is against bigger teams, like, I could see that he's a 6'7" or whatever he is, 6'7", bigger wing, moves really well. Like, I could see him being the guy that eventually moves there for certain lineups. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be, I don't know if he'll start though as much, but I could see him closing a lot. Like, I think if Painter likes the Jones at the 3 lineups, like, he might just stick with them, but maybe he only runs it for 2 to 3 minutes, and then you kind of get into the rotation, and Heide is the one that eventually does close out for the game. So, but there's definitely potential for it in general.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things play out because I mean, how many games do they have? They've got a game on Monday, then a game on Friday, and then another game.
The Monday, Friday's bye games. That following Monday's Xavier. Which they aren't like a top Big East team, but they're still solid. And then the week after that's Maui. So that 2 bye games, and then 1 solid game, and then Maui.
Right. So you get 3 games before the real bright lights start to come on with some big time matchups that are going to have ranking implications behind them. So, how this lineup shakes out and how the rotations, shake out will be interesting to see. I guess the other thing that I guess stood out to me was early on, because I think rotations probably get a little more wonky in the second half. So when you look at what they were trying to do in the first half, at one point they had both Trey Kaufman-Renn and Zach Edey off the floor with Caleb as the 5. And to me, that was an interesting lineup to watch, because I just think at times we're going to have to try to figure out how to play without both those, traditional post players and try to give teams a different look. And you could almost see right away how much faster they were playing. And I understand the post is always going to be our bread and butter, but it was interesting to watch that lineup. And it seems like because it came in so early, that might be a rotation we see early on in the season.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be like, because TKR and Edey are obviously the 2 like primary post players, although First did get some more touches in the post today. Don't know if that's just exhibition or whatever it is, but that was also part of something that did intrigue me. But yeah, if Edey and TKR are off the floor, then Purdue just plays a different style. Like, it's just, you have to. I would be shocked this season. I don't know if I should. I would be pretty shocked this season if Smith, TKR, and Edey were all off the floor at the same time. Because I think if TKR and Edey are off, that means Smith's probably kind of getting even more of the green light than normal. Of just, hey, this is your offense, like, run pick and rolls, get downhill, facilitate for others. I think that would be when I would be really surprised, because like you said, there's probably going to be a time at some point Gillis and First are on the floor. They work pretty well together. First is, like, I think, a pretty good rim protector, has really good athleticism and size. Gillis is more of a spacer, so it can work together, and then you have potential wings that can fit alongside them as well.
Okay, so I'm getting some messages here from Craig. It seems like they're getting ready to lock you in unless you're ready to get out.
I don't know. I really don't know. It's dark in here. I think Craig said Luber was leaving, but
all right. Well, where's Craig?
He's logging on right now.
Okay, well then we'll ask Craig. I'm sure he got the info. While we wait for what's that? Go ahead.
I'm gonna send the link to myself also on my phone, so I can just pick it up there if I need to.
Yeah, you're good. Worst case scenario, we do a quick synopsis of this thing and then we call it a night. It's an exhibition game. Got another regular season game starts Monday. We don't have to overthink this. And certainly don't want to hold up, the Mackey Arena, workers. If they want to leave, obviously we're not going to hold them up. But we'll do everything we can to get the information in. So while Craig's logging on, I'll run through some of the statistics here on the game. We'll just start with let me just kind of try to read through this because I'm trying to find
this is an exhibition game for us too.
Yeah, it really is.
Boilers
Yeah, there we go. Total points. I'm like, where are the points at? So Zach
TP.
Edey leads the way with 19 points on 6 of 12 shooting. Braden Smith in 17 minutes of play, 4 of 9 shooting, 11 points. He had that 3-pointer right off the bat, 6 assists with a plus minus of 36. So you really saw him kind of navigating through and trying to be a facilitator. 13 points from Lance Jones on 5 of 8 shooting, 3 of 6 from deep. Braden Smith was 3 of 4 from deep because we're going to be really keying in on 3-point shooting.
I'm jumping in really quick because I see Craig's about to log on. I guarantee the first thing he talks about is Lance Jones.
Yes, sir. Yeah, hey, dude, it's intriguing. I mean, like I said, I compared him to just David Jenkins just because he's that newcomer that comes from a different school, but his game is much different than David Jenkins, and I think is going to play better with what this team needs. And as you pointed out so many times, it's 3-point shooting. As we bring Craig in here, let me get all my ducks in a row here, as I like to say. But we appreciate everyone's patience as we get going here. So, yeah, as I was running through the statistics, Craig, Fletcher Lawyer only 1 of 5 from 3, 6 points on the game. So not the night he was necessarily looking for. So that pretty much evens it out as far as guys. Caleb First with 10 points. Will Berg with 11 points in 11 minutes of play, got a lot of action in the second half, 5 of 8 shooting. Had that put back, off the rebound in the second half. 16 minutes of action for Ethan Morton. I know he's always a lightning rod of conversation for how many minutes he's going to get. No points from, if I'm reading this correctly, or what, no points from Ethan Morton. And then Miles Colvin also with about 16 minutes of action. And he was 2 of 8 from the field, still kind of looking for that shot. I mean, you can definitely see the form looks nice, but the consistency of knocking down those shots hasn't quite been there as far as from what I've been able to see, whether it's in person or what we've seen here on TV. So joining us now here in the dark, the darkness of Mackey Arena. This is a first, Craig. They turned the lights off on us here tonight.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm on the Blair Witch Project or something right now as I look at my face on there, but definitely a first that they've shut the lights off in the middle of the show.
Like I told Joe that we don't have to overthink this. We got the first official home games coming up here on Monday, and it's the floating heads, as Rowlett Boiler says in the chat. So we can kind of run through this, and if we're holding anybody up as far as the Mackey Arena workers, we can try to get this done and let everybody go home and have a good night. So I'll let you two kind of give your breakdowns, and then we'll try to hit on the most important bullet points and then call it a night. How's that sound, guys?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Joe, it helps if you're off mute, but for me, Greg, I guess if I'm going to start with maybe a couple of really important things that I saw. One, it's obvious that Painter is trying to get Cam minutes to get him comfortable and situated. I think he likely has a clear understanding that Cam's going to be really important. He's also getting Miles minutes there too, but Cam played more minutes than anybody tonight. I think 21 minutes in the end or something like that. Kind of stuffed the stat sheet in a way. Didn't have a ton of points, but he had like 5 points. He had 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, a steal. Just did a lot of different things. He's rotating to the right places on defense. He's got active hands. He's got long arms that he can get up on that wing spot. And he looked super comfortable on that 3 he hit. And the one he missed looked really good leaving his hand. I think Cam's going to be really important, and I think he's going to see minutes sooner than later. At that 3 spot, I still think Jones and Fletcher and Braden probably start, but I think Miles is probably the second guy off the bench behind Gillis as we look at coming up on like Xavier and then the Maui Invitational later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was talking with Joe about this, my question to Joe was, and I'll ask you since you started with Cam, is there an opportunity for him to become the starter, whether that's, off the tip or more importantly, the guy that's getting the starter minutes? Because it definitely seems like his ability, he has that opportunity.
I mean, I think with Painter and what Painter's shown really since the Carson Edwards year, I mean, like Robbie and those guys got a run right away, but they had nothing then, right? So the Carson year was really where you saw him start to give guys minutes that were coming in just as freshmen or off redshirt freshman years above upperclassmen, and in my mind, really not start to worry about anything else other than just production. So I think that chance is always there with Painter. If Colvin is, or not Colvin, if Heidi is producing, or Colvin for that matter, at a really high level at that spot, Painter's going to give him the minutes and eventually give him the starting role if they're outperforming. I mean, we saw Zach take that away from a guy that everybody thought was going to be an All-American going into that year. So Painter's going to play who's producing. With that said, I think there's certain matchups where Heidi at the 3, just with his length, quite frankly, had he been ready and played 3 or 4 more games, that Arkansas matchup is a matchup where Cam probably maybe needs more minutes. And I think we'll see certain matchups that's certainly the case. But the 3-guard lineup is going to work for, over 50% of the teams out there are going to be fine matching up.
Yeah, sounds good. Corey Lesney in the chat's asking you, Craig, what's the deal with Morton's minutes and at which positions?
So that Painter actually had a pretty good joke in the press conference. He was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to put people in and whatnot," and I tell Morton to go in, and Morton says at the point, and Painter was like, "No, at the 4," and he goes, "At the 4, I play point," and Painter goes, "Well, shit." So he, and he's just kind of saying, like, trying to work everybody into this lineup and where are they going to go at different points and times and whatnot, but. I mean, Morton's going to get minutes, and I think Morton's still a really active defender. And more important than that, Painter just trusts him to be in the right spot, to make the right read offensively, defensively. So he's going to get minutes. It's just, again, it is a matter of where. Today it was backup point guard more. In Arkansas, it was his more traditional role that he's had since he's been here at the 3. And I think it'll really just depend on, again, it's really going to depend on the matchup. A really high pressure team defensively like Arkansas, I don't see Morton playing point guard minutes. I see that being Jones backing up Smith and pretty much strictly being that. Against teams that don't pressure a lot, I think Morton can run the point fine. So it's just going to be situational.
Yeah, Ethan Morton certainly is going to be a lightning rod of conversation here this whole season. He was last year. The other guy that seems to really be lighting up the chat, and I'll throw this one to you, Joe, is from Brian McDowell. He says, Painter loves TKR, and it makes me think that he just forces things in games. He doesn't look that good to me, but Paint must see something that we don't see. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna quickly go back to Morton, and I'll have the full rotation out at Boilers in Stands on Twitter. You should go follow once we get to 1,000 subs. By the way, we're going to give an Edie jersey away, so definitely go follow us on Twitter at Boilers in Stands, and I'll have the full rotation there. Morton played all 17 minutes at backup point guard today. And TKR, he struggled today. Obviously, that's not breaking news. There's the jersey right there from Brad.
Signed jersey. 1,000 followers.
Yep. So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
And retweet the pinned tweet once you get there. You'll see it. TKR struggled. I think the people that want to write him off after 2 games, they may ultimately be right. They can't be I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I want to give it more than 2 games because, as he kind of mentioned, Painter must see something, and we don't get to see the practices all off season. Everybody's like TKR, and at some point, I do think it'll translate. He's playing more of a new position this year. He was primarily the backup 5 last year, and I there's clips on Twitter I know for a fact, and looking through the numbers, TKR and Edie played really well together. They just straight up did. You got to see it in games, and maybe if he's still this way after once we're in Maui area, then yeah, maybe it's a little more time to panic. But right now, I want to see it more. Give him more minutes and just kind of figuring it out. Because I see the vision. I really do. There's some of the spacing and stuff that when you have TKR on ball, now Edie's off ball, and just my keyword is gravity with that. The gravity that Edie hits, there's going to be matchups that TKR is absolutely able to punish force in the post. He's got to get there, and I think it'll come. But I see the vision, and defensively they're better than I expected. Rebounding, they're monsters on the glass together, TKR and Edie. just needs time, and then I'll if it's still not a good thing after a few more games, then I'll probably be more willing to kind of concede like, yeah, this just absolutely doesn't work.
No, Joe is not related to Caleb First. He's actually Willie Berg's older brother.
That's just the red hair.
You're related to every tall person. He's also very tall. He's not just got red hair. He's also tall. So he could play. Joe could play center.
Yeah, Joe, talk to me about Lance Jones's game tonight, because there was a lot of people hot to trot on Lance Jones after the Arkansas game, and I mentioned to you, I think Lance is just one of those players where we're going to see shooting percentage swings. That's just kind of who he is. But I want to hear a little bit about your thoughts about Jones tonight.
It kind of goes back to me of like, hey, this is like, we have seen 2 exhibition games at this point. I don't think it's incorrect after the Arkansas to like have concerns. I think it's incorrect to completely write people off after a 40-minute exhibition game. And then Jones against a really good NAI team, and granted they are NAIA, but he showed that kind of shot making ability that Purdue just needed last year. Like last year, I think Purdue, when they got down the stretch, Purdue would have loved to have a guy like Jones that isn't afraid to take any shot, no matter how far away from the rim it is, or get to the rim, put the ball on the floor. Like I have that one star. We'll get to the lawyer in a second, because I do want to talk about him too. But yeah, no, I liked what I saw from Jones. I see it. I think if Painter likes it, he'll start most games of the 3. I don't know if he finishes every game of the 3. I think that's going to be the matchup dependent, and I think that's going to be the key thing to watch more as we get into bigger and bigger games.
Yeah,
well, I think with
the thing is, he's fearless.
Yep.
Yes.
And
he doesn't hesitate. He
No.
comes around that curl, gets the ball, and fires it. Jenkins, I keep comparing it to him just because they're the newcomer. Jenkins needed to set up his shot. He wasn't coming around the curl, bang, down the well. That's to me what Lance Jones's game is.
I'm not gonna put that question up, Corey, but I would say 100% yes. In terms of offensive output, in terms of ball handling, in terms of dribbling, emphatically yes. But with that said, that this is just kind of who Jones has been from a shooting standpoint. And I actually don't think, you said this is in Arkansas. Dude, Jones was taking shots so far out in both of these games. I don't think the shot really is that much different whether he was shooting against Arkansas or Grace, because he's shooting at 3 foot behind the line anyway. It's not like he's got a hand right out in his face against either one of those teams on most of those shots he was putting up. So I love the fearlessness, and like Joe said, and Rafael posted on Twitter earlier, like Purdue needs that guy that's just willing to take the shot, and he can score at all 3 levels. He can go to the rim, he can shoot mid-range, he can shoot a deep shot. We're going to have to live with some bad shooting percentage games. That's just part of who he is.
Yeah. I'm so impressed.
Yeah, so
Am I going?
says, I'm so impressed with Jones. Seemed fearless first time in Mackey. Can you imagine how fun this is for him?
Yeah, he mentioned in the post game press conference just like how cool, and you heard it from Jenkins last year too, of just like basically just they're kind of come in and they're like, this is an exhibition game crowd, and I think that's a testament to the Paint crew, to all the fans that show up to Mackey, the fans in the stands, if you will.
Now, here's the real question, Joe, or I'll ask Craig this. Did Joe ask a question in the presser?
He did not. I think
I was ready.
What is your problem?
Okay, I was ready. I had it loaded, and then I got a little nervous, and I let my opportunity pass.
No, that's okay.
And then
that's
truthfully,
okay.
my hands
you
were
know what?
sweating a bit.
But
next time I'm good. I'm more comfortable for next time.
Take it from a media vet like myself now.
Who's
not afraid to ruffle feathers, whether it's in the Chicago media or otherwise. But it is good to kind of take a step back, observe, learn, listen before you start talking. And I think you're probably much better about that kind of stuff than I am. But you're very knowledgeable, and I think you're going to ask very educated questions. So I'm excited for you to fire some off here sooner rather than later. I'm just busting your balls.
Yeah, no, I know I need to. I will. I'm more comfortable for next time now. Had to get my feet wet a little bit.
So, where else do you guys want to take this? Because this is totally on you guys.
Yeah.
You
I think
know,
Joe wanted to talk about Fletcher, I think, and
Yeah.
that could probably pretty much wrap things up pretty close. I
yeah,
think.
like I said, I don't want to shortchange our viewers, but at the same time, the lights are off in Mackey. We have a long season to cover this.
we have another show
We
tomorrow.
did a post-game show for the Arkansas game. So we're here for you every game. Don't worry. We're never gonna skip out on you as long as our schedules are with you and aligned for us personally. But we're always gonna be there for you. So we're even here for you tonight, even when the lights are shut off at Mackey.
Yeah.
But long season to go. How much you can take from a game like this outside of rotations and little tidbits isn't going to be as much as when we officially kick things off Monday. So let's get into a little lawyer conversation, and then if we have any little questions from the chat, we can take those and then call it a night.
So yeah, Corey's just asking if anybody else is concerned about lawyer. I am not. Each miss I grow a little more concerned, I guess, about the 3-point shooting, but I think the thing with lawyer, and I think because he was labeled such a shooter, it's almost hurting him at this point. Like, he's not just a shooter. He really isn't. Like, I've said multiple times, I think he's the best post-entry passer on the team. And if he's not one, he's probably number 2 behind Morton. That's important in this offense. He didn't quite get as many to go today, but that Arkansas, that second half, I fully believe Purdue does not force OT without lawyer. He dominated a 6-minute stretch, multiple drives to the baskets, multiple and ones. I think he shot 33% from 3, 2 of 6. Obviously, like, the shot's got to fall at some point. I'm confident that, like, that's just me being optimistic, I think, with the shooting, because nothing really.
Corey says Joe is never worried about anyone.
We've had 2 exhibition games. Like, I want to see more. I'm not.
All right. Who are you worried about? Give him someone you're worried about. Prove him wrong.
I mean, I'm worried about TKR. I still think it can work. I want to see more. I would say I would say I'm worried about him. First shot, I'm worried about.
Jeff Parks. I want to go back. Corey is worried about everything.
True. So, that's why me and Corey work.
That's why we got balance here at Boilers.
But
in the stands.
The one last thing with Lawyer is, like, he has an ability to get to the rim that isn't pretty. It isn't the most athletic. It's sometimes running kind of through 3 guys. And he gets them to go a decent bit. And that's another thing. Like, if he's still respected as a shooter and now he can drive to the rim, I think he's going to be good. I think he's still the 3rd most important player on this team behind Edie and Smith.
Good. My mom is in the chat. I always got to give my mom a shout out. She says, Joe, you're great. You'll ask when you're ready. Greg is terrified of Matt Painter. That's true, Mom. That's true.
Got my back.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So she's right. I was scared shitless of Painter. It took me months before I spoke up finally at the Purdue press conferences. But I also didn't want them to kick me out. And I'm not worried about that anymore. They can't kick us out because we're here to stay. So appreciate it. Craig, what else do we have here? The one thing that did stand out, I think I started here. Brian McDowell brought up a great point. Loved that play at the end of the first half. That very much the same, Brian. That was Bryce Drew, esque as far as Valpo University March Madness, if you're old enough to remember that play. And it's the perfect play, when you have Edie, a big target, throw it all the way down court, and then a kick back out for a 3 ball. Craig, what did you think of that play? Because I thought it was drawn up very beautifully.
Oh, I loved it. And, there's a decent chance with the way we like to play close games in the Big Ten schedule that we may have to use it at some point. And I think, obviously, Edie's a big target. We're going to be playing against teams that probably have somebody a little bit bigger to try to deflect that pass. But certainly it could work, and it was a nice opportunity for Painter to kind of put that in and give it a try for the first time.
Joe, what did you think? You're the guy that draws everything up on the chalkboard.
It's beautiful. Mason Gillis, wasn't he? He was a baseball player, right? Little League World Series and all that stuff.
True. That's true.
And when I saw him inbounding, I was like, oh yeah, baseball pass coming in. Perfect tip by Edie. Like, because
you had like what 1 point, you only had like 1.6 seconds, right?
Yeah, and it was, if I remember right, it was either in and out or
it was halfway down. Derek Mulligan, speaking of threes,
Yeah.
No, speaking of Edie shooting a three, we did talk about it earlier when we first introed the show. Do you guys want to talk about that? What was the energy like when he put that one up?
I'll let Craig do the energy side. I'm gonna go nerdy. That was off of a Rams. That's like the play that they ran. Gillis is always in the spot that Edie was, and Edie's the one rolling to the rim. So I don't have my board, whatever. Maybe we'll if I remember, we'll go to it at some point.
They couldn't see it if you did.
That's true. It was a Ram screen. So basically in this scenario, usually it's flipped. The bigs are flipped. Edie down screens whoever was at the 4. I'm going to just say Gillis for simplicity. He down screens Gillis, who then immediately screens like the top guy. And then as Gillis screens, he rolls, and then Edie like replaces the roll at the top. Usually that's switch and Gillis gets a wide open 3, but yeah,
I've seen them draw that up for Sasha quite a few times as well. Like that's one of their staple shots that they draw up for their 3-point shooters. And Matt Painter told us on our show when we interviewed him about a week and a half ago, that link is still available on our YouTube and where you find us on audio platforms and Spotify and everywhere else. That Matt Painter, we asked him the number of how many 3-point attempts, and I think he said 12. So we'll see. Maybe he'll get a couple. And when he makes one, the place is just gonna go insane.
The funniest thing was when the press conference started. Edie sat down and Mike Carmen asked about the 3 as the very first question to the players, and Braden, he looked right at Braden Smith, and Braden said, "You owe me $20. I told you that'd be the first question." So like the guys were having fun with it, and they knew. And the energy was palpable when he caught it, and he didn't hesitate. Like he caught and just fired, and it looked good leaving his hands. So.
Well, I'll tease some people because I haven't put it out yet, but there's a video that's going to come, and I'm hoping to have it done before the start of the season. Where I asked a lot of the players at the fan day who the best 3-point shooter on the team is regarding them versus Edie. So stay on the lookout for that. Yeah. There's some pretty funny responses.
Real quick, somebody said something about redshirting. That question was asked, and Painter did say that he doesn't have those conversations with players until after the second exhibition, but he very quickly said before he said he hasn't talked to anybody about it. He very quickly said he didn't think anybody was redshirting this year. So I don't think that's going to happen.
I'm with Brian. He says Colvin won't redshirt, but maybe he should. All hands on deck for the season. I'm with him on the second part for sure. Like, it was why I was an advocate of getting a 13th roster spot, like scholarship roster player. I understand why Painter didn't, just locker room, things like that. But technically, Edie could come back. There's no guarantee of what this team will be in the future, but we know for sure right now it's a top 5 team. I would think you just rather, I know you're giving up a little bit in the long run, but with just how good of a chance you have this year in the short term, like it just seems like you want as many possibilities open, just in general, is my thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sure. Will be interesting. Before we wrap things up here tonight, if you guys don't have anything boiler related, I was going to throw it here to, the elder statesman of the show, to give us his thoughts about the passing of Bobby Knight and kind of what that means to the state of Indiana and even in the Purdue program with Matt Painter, obviously having a relationship with, being an IU fan growing up in that whole bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, Greg, since you were actually an IU fan first, not to rat you out, you might be able to speak on it, but no, I think one thing, if you go to Boilers in the Stand Twitter, Matt Painter's full answer about Bob Knight and kind of what he meant to the state of Indiana in terms of a basketball standpoint is posted there in 2 parts. I posted the entire answer. I wanted to make sure everything he said was up and on there. So you can watch Matt Painter's full answer to that question on Boilers in the Stands Twitter. But I guess what I would say is a lot of what Coach Painter said related to Bob Knight. For a long time, he was one of the best coaches in the country. And if you look at his coaching tree and the people that he influenced that are out there, a lot of what Bob Knight drew up and a lot of what he drilled in terms of emphasizing that his teams would do has been perpetuated across the country in other programs through coaches that coached alongside of him, players who went on to become coaches, and then everybody that they impacted as well. So he's truly put a stamp on the game. And I think in relation to Purdue, that battle back and forth with Gene Katie, one of the things that I said recently, when IU was terrible and we were just kicking the crap out of them for 17 games in a row or whatever it was, it wasn't as fun when that's not a rivalry. I love beating them over and over again. But Purdue is better and the Big Ten is better when IU is also good because it brings out the best in Purdue. They have to match the quality of IU and all that type of stuff. I like when it's a true rivalry, and I think we're headed back there. But that's what Bob Knight did. He had really good teams and fielded great teams, and Purdue would have to match that, and oftentimes did. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I can say about Bob Knight from a basketball standpoint. And I guess what he meant to Purdue was that he constantly made Purdue better because we had to get better to keep up with IU in the Big Ten.
Yep. So Bob Knight passes away, I believe, at the age of 86. So, may he rest in peace. Obviously he had a controversial end to his coaching tenure, and he was a very much of a lightning rod of conversation. For fans, you either loved him or hated him. He's one of the more quotable coaches in basketball history. I know, growing up, I can remember him having a relationship with Michael Jordan, having coached the Olympic team when one of the last teams of collegiate players that played on the USA team, and he coached Michael Jordan before he went on his Bulls run. Yes, Craig is correct. When I was growing up as a young idiot, I did root for IU. But the Bob Knight era was probably, I know he coached, when Mike Davis took over, that was more when I started to transition to as a college basketball enthusiast. So a lot of his glory days is before my time. But there's certainly no questioning the impact he had on this sport. And I know Matt Painter always spoke highly of him. And, I think Matt Painter has taken some pages from that book as far as being a guy that's very direct. And I think obviously Painter does it in a more professional way, doesn't throw chairs and doesn't go after players, in certain ways the way Bob, but that's how, things were 40 years ago. It's easy to look at things nowadays and look back on him and say that wasn't right. But a lot of coaches back then were like that. It doesn't excuse his behavior, because I'm not advocating for choking players out or anything of that nature, but at the same time, that is a part of Bob Knight's story. Some of the, controversial stuff, but at the end of the day, he was a basketball lifer, and now he's passed away. And yeah, I was at the game where Bob Knight returned to Assembly Hall when they took on Purdue. Purdue won that game convincingly, but you could see all the alumni. Isaiah Thomas was there, and all the different, IU greats, and you could see how much that meant to him and how much that meant to all the people there and the former players there. And so I guess that was a nice moment for him to have, because, it had been a long time since he had returned to Assembly Hall up to that point. So it's good that they got that done before he passed away. So, that's pretty much all I have on the subject, but yeah, there it is. You guys got anything else?
Well, don't forget about the show tomorrow night. I know a lot of people on Twitter follow Haslametrics. He has his own metric system similar to KenPom and some of the others that are out there. Very popular guy on Twitter, and a lot of people reference his metrics. Gonna bring him on, and we're kind of gonna do just a schedule preview show, talk about what games Joe and I are looking forward to watching the most, which games we think might be the most problematic, which may not be the same thing. Quick little tease there in terms of that, how that goes. But Haslam, we're going to visit with him just a little bit about what goes into having a site like that and making predictions. Talk a little about what's available on his page, and then ask him, based on the data, kind of what the data says about this team and what games out there might be the closest and the most difficult for Purdue to win.
Yep, sounds good. That's going to be an exciting conversation. Eric Haslam. The Haslametrics is one of the more popular outlets fans go to follow the March Madness journey. So it'll be exciting to get him here early in the season and then follow that along and see how the metrics play into Purdue's favor as the season goes along. So shout out to Craig for getting that interview locked in. And we got a lot of different stuff here coming up. We got post-game shows next week, Monday for the start of the season, next Friday. We got go ahead.
Yeah, Conzo Martin coming on next Wednesday. A lot of people who grew up during that era watching Glenn Robinson and Conzo play. That's going to be really, really exciting. Really looking forward to that conversation with him. Just a really interesting guy who's played and coached at some of the highest levels.
Yep. Conzo Martin, Eric Haslam, post-game shows, weekly interviews. This is what we do here. We're back, baby. Full tilt. This is what we do here at Boilers in the Stands. Make sure you follow us at Boilers in Stands on Twitter. We also have a Facebook page. If you look up Brags in the Stands, which is the overall network, obviously on YouTube as well, the Brags in the Stands network. We cover Purdue, and then I obviously do a lot of different Chicago sports coverage in my own right. So please subscribe to that channel. Like the show. That kind of stuff does help us a lot with the algorithms. The more you like, the more you comment, more subscribers.
I heard if they like more, that there's a chance that they'll leave the lights on for us. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
if that's true or not,
we get to over 100 likes, they might leave the lights on.
I was just thinking, there's already a basketball podcast called After Dark. So maybe we could start calling this Boilers in the Stands Lights Out when it's
lights out.
Okay. I like that.
All right, that was good. Corey Lesney, I'm still concerned, Joe. Yeah, so we're gonna voice our concerns. Joe's not concerned about anything. Corey's concerned about everything. Jeff's concerned about Joe. We're all concerned if I'm going to end this show in a timely fashion. That's what we do here with my Midwestern goodbyes. So you guys got anything else, or can I close this shop up? Nice work tonight. Happy for you guys. I'm jealous because obviously I'd love to be out there at Mackey Arena. Go ahead, Joe.
I do it. Yeah. Just quick thanks to everybody. Like, this was my first game being credentialed.
Let's go, kid.
I'm excited for this year, just in all that. And, it's in large part because of everybody that tunes in and interacts and likes the stream and all that stuff. It kind of allows us to be able to do stuff like this. So do want to thank all you guys for that.
Well, we're proud of you, Joe.
And I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we're proud of you, man. And you deserve it, dude. You're a hard worker. You're a great teammate, and you're a very knowledgeable basketball guy. And we are all better off hearing your knowledge of the game, and you improve this show mightily. You and Craig carry the load here, while I just kind of come on as the meatball idiot every post game show. So that's where we're at. Of course, we were going to have a Midwestern goodbye. We wouldn't if we didn't for our. This isn't even the first post game show because we already had one with the Arkansas game. I was just too drunk to attend it because I was on the court with my buddies.
No, really? You were?
I
couldn't tell in the phone call.
I was hammered. But I did catch the second half of that game at the 19th hole of the bar at the golf course we were at. But hey, that felt like a tournament game. My goodness. So, but it's great. Love to have basketball back. Happy for you, Joe. Great job today, Craig. You guys are doing great work. So make sure you follow us along on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, the whole bit. Like, subscribe, and we'll catch you all here real soon. We will see you here tomorrow night. More games to come, great interviews to come. So always Boiler up.